All right. So, first question that they're going to be asking you here is, what is the reference angle? So what is the reference angle? Okay. And they're going to give you a picture. So let me draw a picture here. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to draw. All right, so something like this. So they'll give you some notification of where the angle is. And let's say they tell you that that's 210 degrees. Now, remember, if it's 210 degrees, you should be referencing your x-axis, right? So like you're going to want to get this thing and draw a little line like that. And this is the angle they're talking about right there. Okay? So if they gave you 210 degrees, then what is that little green angle? Remember that the flat line is 180, right? So how much more did you have to go in order to get a 210? So if you're at 180, if you go 10 more, that's 190, 10 more, that's 200, 10 more, that's 210, so that's 30 degrees more, right? So theta would have to be 30 degrees. Now remember, you could also do it by saying like, okay, 180 degrees plus this angle is 210 degrees. You could create a little formula to try to figure it out. You say, okay, I start here, I'm going to go a little bit more. And if you subtract 180, and again, you don't have to do the math if you don't want to. I'm just showing it to you guys that way in case you want to see it. This will give you a 30-degree angle. Okay? Now let me call this part A, just so I don't have to rewrite the instructions again. Let's do one more. And then we'll move on. But one more picture here. Now, this one will kind of stop it in quadrant 2. So we'll say that this angle is 133 degrees. 133. Okay? And you're going to want to drop down your vertical line and identify the angle, which is going to be that one. Okay? So if that angle is 133 degrees, then what's theta? What is it supposed to equal? If I do 133 degrees plus theta, what is it equal to? You guys know? What should I put on the right side of that equation? 180, right? It should be equal to 180 degrees. So if you subtract 133 on both sides, theta would be 47. And that's your answer. Okay? Remember what I told you guys yesterday, that if the angle is in quadrant 1, then you don't have to do any work. Like if I just gave you a 45-degree angle, like something like this, right? And I said 45, then that is your answer. 45 is 45. If it's in quadrant 1, you never have to do any kind of like weird tricks. You just kind of just write down the answer that's in quadrant 1. It's when it's in quadrant 2, 3, and 4 when you kind of have to figure out like, okay, what exactly is the reference angle, okay? So you're going to have, according to what I see here, 5 of these types of questions, okay? There's going to be some in quadrant 1, some in quadrant 2, 2 in quadrant 3, there's 1 in quadrant 4. So they're doing all the quadrants for this. Okay? Now, there's also going to be some questions. So question number 2. There's going to be some questions where they're going to ask you, like, what is the trig ratio for sine of theta? So I'm going to say, what is the trig ratio for, and we'll put sine, cosine, and tangent. Now this is more of a review answer because you're supposed to know, like sine, cosine, tangent, they have a fraction that you're supposed to use, right? This ratio. So that goes back to the SOHCAHTOA thing, right? So sine would be what over what? If I do a fraction, what do I look at? You guys remember? All right, opposite over the hypotenuse. Thank you. Cosine would be what over what? Remember, you can have notes. That's the nice thing, right? So, all right, thank you. Adjacent over the hypotenuse. And what about tangent? All right, there you go. And that's it. There are 3 questions exactly like this. Maybe not worded exactly like mine, but they're going to ask you, can you tell me the ratio? So that's like 3 points right there. Okay? They'll ask you for sine, cosine, tangent, etc. Now, they're also going to want you to solve for some angles. Okay, but before we do that, I'm just looking really quick. They're going to ask you a question where they're just going to want you to write the correct equation that you would use. So let me show you that type of problem. So which equation is true? This is what they're going to say. Which equation, and I'm going to put, would you use to solve? Now on the test it's going to say which one is true because they're going to give you 4 options to pick from. Okay? But for us, since I'm not giving you options, I'm just going to say which equation would you use to solve this. Okay? So, part A. Let me draw a triangle here. And we'll put like our angle here. Sometimes they put question marks instead of a theta, so that's okay. And we'll put 10 and 7. All right, so we'll do that for part A right now. So if I wanted to figure out what theta is, which trig function would I use to help me get started? So look at my angle. Is 10 my opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Opposite. Is 7 my opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Adjacent. So that's opposite and adjacent. So tangent, right? So you just got to do this. You got to pick this answer. You don't have to do anything else. Just look for that answer right there. Because the question on your test will say which one is true. And they might have like tangent of theta equals 7 over 10. Sine of theta equals 10 over 7. Cosine of theta equals 7 over 10. And tangent of theta equals 10 over 7. And you got to pick the right one that makes sense with that, right? So we'll do one more and then move on to the solving. And then I think that's basically all of your quiz right there. It's just based on these things. So let me just do one more. So just to kind of do what maybe the test is going to do, they might put a question mark instead, okay, instead of a theta. And write that out. So as you guys are kind of getting that put together, I'm just looking at the rest of these things. All right. So which trig equation am I going to use for that angle? Okay, which one would I use? I mean, what are the side names that I have? Do I have adjacent, opposite, hypotenuse? Which ones do I have? Opposite and hypotenuse, which means I should use sine, right? Yeah, sine. So I'm just going to put sine of, they have a question mark here. If they didn't, you can put like theta and then put opposite over hypotenuse. Okay? So again, they'll give you the options. Just pick the right one. That's all you have to do. Now, aside from that, they're going to make you go one extra step, and they're going to say, can you solve for the angle? What would be the equation to solve for the angle? Not just to get you started, but to solve. So here's, what is this, number 4? So number 4, which or what equation would you use to solve for the angle? So we'll do 2 of these, and then after that we'll actually solve for the angle, and that pretty much will get us all the way through to the rest of this quiz. I'm just looking through it, but yeah. So we'll do part A and B again. So let's create another right triangle here. We'll put our theta here, and 4 and 5. Now remember, they want the equation that solves for the angle. So it should say theta equals something, but usually we don't start that way. We usually start with the main function. So what trig equation am I going to use for this one? Am I going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? Which side is missing? Which one doesn't have anything? The opposite. So that means I have the adjacent and the hypotenuse, right? So that's going to be cosine. That's 4 over 5. But that's not the right answer for what they want. They want the equation that solves for the angle. Right now, I'm not solving for the angle. Right now, I have cosine theta. So let's get the angle by itself. So you guys remember doing the inverse? Cosine inverse of 4/5. That's the answer they want. They want you to write it so it says theta is, and then all you would have to do is plug that into your calculator. Now let's go ahead and do that so we don't do a whole extra set of problems. Let's go ahead and solve for this. So I'm going to say that this is the correct answer. I'm going to change colors just to kind of show an extension here. Let's actually figure out what cosine inverse of 4/5 is. So give me a second as I bring out a calculator here. So let me make sure I'm in degree mode, because if not, I'm in trouble. I'm not. I'm in radian mode. So I'm going to go to degree mode. All right. And that's always something you should check on your calculators whenever you do trig. What mode are you in? So cosine inverse, so second cosine of 4/5 is equal to 36.9. Let's just put 36.9. So theta is equal to 36.9 degrees. Remember, you guys will have multiple choice options, so you don't have to worry about like what should I round it to. They will already give you guys those options. So I'm just doing this just so that we don't waste our time doing a whole nother set of problems. Okay, so let's do one more of these, and then we're pretty much done. At least I think we are. Yeah, we'll be pretty much done at that point. So part B. And we'll make this part our theta, and let's put 10 and 12. So again, remember the goal of this problem originally is to just write the equation that would help you solve for the angle. Okay, that's all you want, is write the equation that will help you solve for the angle. On the test, they're going to give you 4 different options, like cosine inverse of that, sine inverse of that, tangent inverse of that, right? Like which one is right? So which function, sine, cosine, or tangent, would I use to start this off? Sine, yeah, because I have opposite being 10, hypotenuse being 12. So I'm going to write sine of theta is equal to 10 over 12. Okay? Now, I don't know if on the test they're going to reduce it or not, so just kind of keep your eyes peeled for that. But if I want to solve for theta, then I just do sine inverse. So this might be the answer, or maybe sine inverse of 5/6 might be your answer, okay, if they reduce it. Okay, so I'll kind of put that one as well. But I did notice some of the problems were not reduced. So it kind of just depends on what they want to do. But let's say both of these are correct, okay? Because one is reduced, one is not reduced. So just depending on what option they give you, all right? Now, if I were to tell you find the actual answer, then I would have to bring out my calculator and do sine inverse of 5 over 6 or 10 over 12, it doesn't matter. It's 56.4, so theta, whoops, I want to change the color here. Theta equals 56.4 degrees. I think that was right, 56.4, yeah. So this would be the answer. If they asked me to find the actual value, then I would just need my calculator at that point. Okay? And let me just really quick look through your quiz one more time to make sure I didn't miss anything, but they're making you solve for the angle, which we just did. They're making you write the equation that's required to solve for the angle, so we just did that. Reference angles, we did that. And also the ratios for sine, cosine, tangent, we did that. And lastly, write the equations that start off the problem. We did those as well. So we're good. We're good. There's 20 problems on your quiz, okay? And it's all based on this stuff, all right? So make sure you guys look over this stuff. Do the homework if you haven't done it yet. Try to get it done and just study. Make sure you do a good grade at the end here.